All right, guys, welcome to Anatomy Physiology 9.01, Introduction to the Digestive System. We start a new chapter today where we're going to go, and it's going to be kind of a quick overview of the digestive system, not quite as much detail as some of the other chapters. But to start with, we're going to do a video that's going to have quite a bit of review. Back at the beginning of the year, you had to memorize that all of the major structures associated with the digestive system. So, for example, you should know that this is the liver, this is the stomach, large intestine, small intestine. But we're going to go over just a little bit more, in a little bit more detail, some of these. So to get started, let's go ahead and start at the top, as they say. Before we go into specific details, the divisions, so we talked about the divisions of the cardiovascular system, we talked about the divisions of the nervous, we will talk about divisions of the nervous system. So we divide the digestive system, let's go with divisions. And we've got, there are three considered to be divisions. We have the alimentary canal. The alimentary canal is basically the hole that starts in your mouth and ends down here at the rectum. And it goes through the entire body. So we start off here with the mouth into the esophagus. We go through the stomach. Stomach goes into the small intestine. Small intestine goes into the large intestine, comes out the rectum, and that's the alimentary canal. These other structures are accessory structures. So, and in this case, this is a gland, this is a gland, and this is considered an accessory structure. So let's list this out as we have glands. So if something's not part of the alimentary canal, then it's a gland, and if it's not a gland, it's considered an accessory structure. And the best example of an accessory structure in the digestive system are teeth. So you need your teeth to, grind things up to eat them. I'm going to try to refocus this. I think it's a little bit blurry. The alimentary canal, I don't want to get too far over. Yeah, we'll come back to this. So we'll go through them and then we'll list out what each of them are. We start off with the oral cavity. And I don't have that color coded in, but that's, basically the mouth. Here's the tongue. And we'll do a sheet on just the oral cavity. Down here we have the esophagus in pink. And the esophagus is what's going to connect the stomach to the oral cavity. But I mentioned this back at the beginning of the year, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this. The back of so here's our nasal cavity. Nasal cavity. The back of the nasal cavity, the back of the oral cavity, and then we think of it, we usually would call it colloquially as the back of the throat, all have the term pharynx, and that's spelled Pharynx. It looks like you would spell it pharynx, but it's pharynx. The Y is silent. Because this is at the back of the nasal cavity, this area that's surrounded by brackets is going to be the nasopharynx. And we're all familiar with this around this time that I'm making this video, if you had a COVID test. So they take the swab and they put it up through the nostril into the back of the nasal cavity, and they swab your nasopharynx. That's actually when they went in and they were scraping. If you had one of the nasal COVID tests, that's what they're doing, and it hurts because it's sensitive. It's not used to getting hit by things. The back of the oral cavity is the oro pharynx. Hope I spelled that right. Oropharynx. And then behind the throat, this is going to be the larynx. So this is the laryngopharynx. And each of those regions, even though they're designated as a pharynx, we have a nasal, oral, and laryngo. In the back of the, close to the nasopharynx, kind of at that border between the two, and down here, we have salivary glands. They're in black. I forgot to tell you too, if you want to pause the video and color code, if you haven't done that already, go ahead and pause the video here, and you can do, your pink, your red, your purple, so on and so forth. Okay, so if you are back, welcome back, but we were just labeling the salivary glands. And their job is to produce saliva. The esophagus, we're not going to really say much about the esophagus on any other slides, so I just want to add a few things about the esophagus. It's here in pink, and its job is to convey food to the stomach from the mouth to the stomach. I suppose I could be writing this in pink. And it does this smooth muscle, so it does this through a process called peristalsis. And what happens is the food it passes back, and then the area above the food contracts, the area below relaxes, and so the food moves down a bit. And we have that, it's almost like a wave. So you get this wave-like motion of muscle contraction and relaxation that carries the food from the mouth to the stomach. So we'll put wave-like muscle contraction. And this is controlled, it's involuntary. And so that's not something that you can necessarily think about. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to color code with the organ. So the next one in our, and let's label this. Tell you what, we'll save that for me, and we'll do alimentary canal. And that takes us to the stomach. And we have the stomach here in purple. The purpose for the stomach is to turn your food into something called chyme. So we get initial, actually digestion, we're going to see starts up in the mouth. You start to digest your carbs right away. In the stomach, we're going to turn our chunks of food into something called chyme. It's a paste-like substance that's a mixture of food, stomach acid. We start to digest proteins in the stomach, so we have some digestive enzymes, and water and mucus. From here, the food is going to pass into you can't see it, it's hidden. The passage from the stomach to the small intestine is hidden in behind here. But in light blue, we have the small intestine. And on the top half of the small intestine, we're digesting the food, and on the bottom 2/3, we're absorbing the food. So here we're going to finish digestion. And we have nutrient absorption. So we're going to be absorbing those nutrients out of the food that's been broken down. And we go into the large intestine. Now I don't, yellow pen doesn't show up, so I'm just going to write in black. So over here I have the large intestine. And I'll just outline that in yellow. See, just doesn't show up. In the large intestine, we're reabsorbing. So there's the substance that leaves the small intestine is very, very watery. And if you've ever had diarrhea, the reason you have diarrhea is because it gets passed through the large intestine faster than it normally would have. Usually with normal movement through the large intestine, we're going to reabsorb water. And absorb any remaining nutrients. You'll notice here in gray at the end, I don't think I have a gray marker, no. At the end of the large intestine is the appendix. And it does have some minor immune functions. They used to think it didn't have any functions at all, but it has some minor immune function. At the end of the large intestine, we have, we kind of take this a turn here. This straight area is the rectum, and then this is lighter brown, and in darker brown we have the anus. So here we have the rectum, and we have the anus, and these are involved in bowel movements or elimination. Elimination. And it turns out we just went through the alimentary canal. So the alimentary canal starts at the oral cavity. We kind of consider, I'm going to put AC next to everything that's part of the alimentary canal. So the esophagus, into the stomach, into the small intestine, into the large intestine, into the rectum and the anus. Those are all alimentary canal. Accessory structure, the teeth, we're not going to color that here, but the gallbladder is an example of an accessory structure because it really doesn't produce anything. The gallbladder that is in green stores, the purpose of the gallbladder is to store a digestive enzyme called bile. And bile's green. And so when we were in your cats and we get into the dissecting the internal organs, you'll be able to find the gallbladder right away. And it's usually tucked right to the underside of the liver. So where does the bile come from? It comes from the liver. This is the largest gland. The liver has so many functions, but it's considered to be a gland. And in fact, it's the largest gland in the body. In addition to producing bile, it produces other digestive enzymes. It has roles in almost any body process that you can think of. Immune functions, cell respiration, glycolysis, control of just so many different things. But those are our major structures, and we can see that they're divided. So let's see. I think that pretty much covers everything we wanted to talk about. So what are our takeaways today? So in our introduction, we were reviewing the major structures, starting in the oral cavity. This time we talked about the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx, a little bit more detail. Back of the nasal cavity, back of the oral cavity, back of the throat. We have the salivary glands we'll talk about, goes into the esophagus. We talked about peristalsis, the alimentary canal consisting of the stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, anus, and then we get into the accessory structures. Oh, I forgot one. Look at that. Talking about glands. Pancreas. This is also a gland. And we're going to see that it's both an exocrine gland and an endocrine gland. So it secretes into the blood, and it also secretes into your digestive tract. Into the digestive tract makes it exocrine, into the blood makes it endocrine. All right, so alimentary canal, stomach, small intestine, large intestine. We've got the accessory structures in the gallbladder, and then we talked about two glands, pancreas and the liver, and we'll spend some more time on this at the end. All right, next video, we're going to get into the oral cavity and all the specifics of the structures there and what starts to happen in terms of digestion. All right, thanks for watching. Have a good day.